Tom and John, appreciate you guys taking the time today to talk with us. A lot of exciting things happening. Light of the World is going to be coming to theaters nationwide. Tom, I'll start with you. What was the impetus for this project?
Well, honestly, John was the first one on it. And so the impetus was Matt McPherson, who came to John and said, I want to make a 2D animated film about Jesus. And they went down that, and he could tell you more about it, but they went down that trail for a while and started developing it. And at a certain point, John said, I need help. And fortunately, we have a friendship that goes back, 17 years or something like that, where we'd worked on Superbook, which was a CBN project where it was an animated series about the Bible through the eyes of these kids. And so going through that with John, we've kind of been through a battlefield together of animation, and being able to do this together has been a dream come true.
I love that. Well, and John, feel free to fill in any blanks there that you want to, but I'd love to hear from you too, how this is different from other biblical animated projects. Obviously, both of you having worked on Superbook, which we all love Superbook. How does this one differ maybe and is unique when you compare it to other projects like it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the perspective of how we're telling the story of life of Jesus. Because it's one thing to tell the story of life of Jesus, and you want to separate yourself from already what's been done, and everyone has their version. And for us, we really felt like if we could take it through the lens of John, the apostle, but also, based on historians and theologians we've been talking with and that stuff, they're really stating that, hey, we do feel that the disciples would have probably been teenagers, upper teenagers, Peter being the oldest, 2024. So we really thought if we could bring it through John's eyes, the youngest of them, and make it more of a coming of age. He's coming of age at 13, coming in adulthood in Jewish culture, but it's coming of age of our film and their style. And so the first time he meets Jesus, it's not this big divinity moment. He runs into him as a carpenter fixing something in the marketplace. And the audience is now become John. So every time he learns about him. And so I think that was the approach that we wanted to be very unique with. Also keep the story focused on John's perspective, so we could just outline the Gospel of John. So we're not going all around and trying to make it different variations. And if we have 84 minutes to tell the gospel presentation to an audience who may not have a concept of the Bible or Jesus, what are those key moments that we have to really highlight on? And so that kind of was our focus there. But I think for us, our goal was make this for everyone, but also in mind of people who have no gospel idea of the gospel, because our goal is not just a theatrical launch in the United States, which is our biggest, but eventually get it in the hands of ministries from around the world and use it as a tool, much like what Jesus Film has done over the decades. And so for us, how do we tell that story, but also tell it that would be fresh to a Christian audience? Because, that's who our other audience is.
Yeah, no, that is, that's an amazing and huge undertaking. And there's such a crave for this sort of thing right now. People want this content and they've always wanted it, but I think we're seeing that more and more with The Chosen, from an adult level, The Chosen, House of David. And then on the kid level, we've seen a number of these animated films do very well in the last few years. Now, Tom, just to kind of circle back to telling this story from John's perspective, obviously John was hinting at some of the things you did in that, but what were the unique challenges of that? Making sure, I know there's a lot to balance, right? There's a lot of fact you want to make sure you're balancing, a lot of truth. And when you're dealing with theology, that raises the bar even more. So what went into that process?
It was tough from day one. And it's one of the reasons I came in and was invited to be a director on this with John, is not just the 2D animation, and finding the art style and all of that goes along with making a 2D animated film. But honestly, me being a believer was going to be a big part of why I was chosen. And boy, what an honor that was. But the responsibility that comes with it is really intimidating. We would start praying before our story meetings and going, God, give us the knowledge to know what you want in this movie. And step by step, we kept doing that all through the production because we had to be rooted. We made jokes oftentimes while we were writing the script with the writers, but also storyboarding it and creating the visuals for it, where we were saying, okay, at Disney, we would have a script. Yeah, we need a script, but we also have scripture. And so we would lean on scripture constantly to try and find what were the points that need to be made in this sequence, in this moment in the film, and landing on those truths that needed to be kind of brought forth. That gave us then, okay, that's the perimeters. You know, you're always trying to find your perimeters as you're telling a story, as you're writing a story. And we could find those through scripture. We could find, as long as we locked into what were the biblical truths that needed to be told in that moment, that became kind of our keystone. And then we could apply, how does John see those biblical truths? How is he going to accept it or not accept it, honestly? And at what point is he going to accept those things? Because he does meet Jesus, but does he know that he is who he says he is? And honestly, we needed that to happen much later in the film. If he immediately accepts him as, oh, you are the Son of God, you are this, you are all of those things that you say you are, and I believe that you can create miracles, because that's how it happened in the Bible. Honestly, the apostles, they were constantly questioning, like, wait, this doesn't make sense. So it's built into the story that, and they messed up all the time, right? And they were fighting with each other. Who does he like more? You know, and John comes out the winner, by the way.
It's so relatable, though, is it not?
Isn't it?
How we are as human beings today, even.
All we had to do was lean into that and say, yep, these were real people making mistakes constantly. The only one we had to be true to, not true to, but like be clear that had the answers was Jesus. But how do you then not make Jesus just saying biblical truths constantly? I'm teaching, teaching, teaching. How do you make him a friend? And so that's also where John comes in, is he's the conduit that we get to see the fun side of Jesus. They joke a little bit during the movie and things like that. And so we get to see the human side of Jesus through his friendship with John.
I love that. John, you know, as you sort of look at this and you look at the landscape of where we are in entertainment right now, why do you believe that projects like this are so needed at this current time?
No, I mean, I think right now people are searching. Parents are searching for content. Children, they're searching for certain answers. They're exposed to scrolling through a phone and things like that, these little bite-sized stories or different types of films and that stuff. I think people right now, especially in the climate we're in, is looking for hope. And I think our story tells it in a way, in a very non-threatening way. First of all, 2D animation is great, or animation in general, medium to share the gospel because it's a non-threatening medium. And I think, people are just looking for hope. They're looking the way to how to talk to my children about things like that. And so there's just a lot of noise out there. And I think that's why for us, we wanted to keep our film very simple, do the gospel presentation, make it engaging, entertaining, stay true to the biblical stuff, but keep it simple because everything in media is this complex. There's there's a real side of it. There's a lot of agendas going on as well. And our agenda was just to tell a story that's about hope. It's about love, and that you have a purpose. And no matter where you are at this moment, whether you're a 5-year-old watching our film or you're a 55-year-old, that's a message for everyone, no matter what culture, what country. And I think in the times we're living in right now, people need that. There's just so much other noise, so much other influence, and a lot of confusion. And so I think that's why, I think that's why Chosen is resonating worldwide. It's become a phenomenon. The audience worldwide isn't a Christian audience. It is, there's something, spiritual truth resonates in the heart. Doesn't matter what your background is, there's something that is connecting. And that's very intentional from God. And I think how we use the medium is what makes that connection there.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, both of you have done so much in the entertainment space. Tom, when you look at what has gone on, the last maybe 5 years, there's been this sort of newfound increased debate. It went on before that too. A lot of the times when we argued as Christians about content, we were talking about content made for adults or teenagers, and we would say, hey, they're pushing the envelope, or this is too much, right? Then that conversation moved into kids content, and it became a very big, especially the last few years, debate. As somebody who has been in this space working for some of the companies at the center of that debate, what has it been like for you to observe this and then to be a part of the solution to it, which is creating content like this?
Yeah, Billy, it's a great question because, I've been in this industry for 35 years. And when I first started out, there were lines. There was definitely lines, and they were fed into the system, the entertainment system, whatever you want to call that, by families because the studios wanted to make money. They knew who their audience was. They didn't want to offend mom and dad. They didn't want to take certain teaching moments and apply Hollywood sort of philosophies away from the parents. Now we live in a culture where no, we want to educate your kids, and honestly, you can. I don't think that's a debate anymore. I think that we totally can see that throughout entertainment, and I've gotten to the point in my career. I left Disney about 25 years ago after being there for about 12. And I left to go work for Big Idea Productions because even back then, this was 2000, I felt like I didn't like the direction that Disney was going in, honestly, and how they were starting to bring in spiritual aspects to a lot of their movies that they didn't need to, honestly, only because they had certain, and I don't know if mandates are too strong of a word to use, but certain goals and belief systems that they kind of wanted to explore. Whether they believed it or not, I don't honestly think they did, honestly. But it got to the point where I was turning down jobs. I was getting offered to direct this. It was a Barbie movie, actually, at one point, and I didn't like the direction they were going in, and so I had to say no to it because I've always had a mandate that I'm not going to do something I can't show my daughters. I had 4 daughters, and they're grown now, but that was really important to me. And now I gotten to the point where now spiritually I get a chance to go the other direction, to say I can show my faith as an animator, as a director. I can finally put that into what I'm working on day to day for the last 2.5 years. That's been such a blessing. And to be able to show the other side of that I can fully come to work and be a full person, right? Not just an artist, not just, right? I get to be fully bringing everything that now my belief also can be a part of it. That's what this has been huge blessing. I found that at Big Idea on VeggieTales, and now and then at CBN with Superbook, and now again with Light of the World. What a blessing that is. And so, yeah, this is going to be that film that tells truth, that speaks to truth. And boy, in the world of AI that we're living in right now, where you question every image, everything that's said, and we're just at the start of that, by the way. We need a film that's talking about the truth, and pointing toward truth, and that's what Light of the World is.
But to add to what Tom's saying, I think, that's why it's so important. And so it's going to sound almost like a promotion, and I don't mean that, but when we talk about really wanting audience to come see our film September 5th, come to the theaters and that, because they have opportunities. Oh, we'll wait till it comes to streaming and that. But for us, in order to continue to make content like this, and not just Salvation Poem Project, but a lot of other faith-based studios, you need to come to the theaters. If you could speak your voice against whatever studio is doing that you don't like, but you also have an opportunity. Hey, support the ones that you want to see more content come from, and that's why we're really just driving. Come see the film September 5th. Because that speaks volumes. If we have a great box office weekend or a longer stretch out there duration, it speaks volumes to Hollywood. But also, more importantly, than speaking volumes of Hollywood, it is an opportunity for more Christian filmmakers, to make more stuff, and that's what it's really about for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, if you look at what's happening right now, and for those who are complaining, and rightfully so many times, about the mainstream large, Hollywood companies, if you look at Prime right now, Prime made House of David. They partnered with
I know,
Wonder. They made
yeah.
House of David. And
Yeah.
guess what? It did so well. They might want to make more now. So if you want to change the culture and you want to see more of these projects, to your point, people need to go out and see Light of the World in theaters September 5th, support it, and be there, because that's going to be the best way to move the needle, to show that there is a passion, there is an audience, and that people will show up for this content. I appreciate both of you, taking the time today, joining us and talking all about Light of the World. Again, it comes out September 5th. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.